These are the assembly instructions for my bunny ear bow. So I'm using this pink UV activated color changing iron-on my faux leather to create the ears. So I went on to the Cricut heat guide and I selected the Cricut Easy Press Mini. I used UV color changing iron-on as my material. My base material I chose faux leather. Going into the heat guide, I have to set my Easy Press Mini to medium and apply my iron-on for 20 seconds. I'm just going to place them where I want them. I've also preheated my faux leather for 5 seconds. So I'm just putting a sheet of parchment paper and then I'm going to put this on for 20 seconds. Okay, so this is a cool peel, so I'm just going to wait for this to cool before I remove my liner. So the instructions say to put tape in order to keep your iron-on in place, but since it seemed pretty secure, I didn't do that. So I'm just going to peel off my liner. So now to assemble the bow, I have some embroidery floss. You could use string, something that's thin yet quite sturdy. I have cut a little bit over 12 inches to begin with. And I have a tapestry needle. So if you look at my piece, so this one I've just taken off the mat, and if you notice, it looks like there's no holes in it, but there are. So if you flip the piece over, you can kind of discern the holes in the piece. Sometimes you have to just scratch on the surface a little, and you want to take those out. It'll just make the assembly much easier. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the largest of the bow pieces and I'm going to flip it so I'm looking at the underside. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue just right beside that hole, and then I'm going to fold the end over, and I want to place that piece so that those holes overlap. So you can barely see it, but there's the hole right there. And I'm going to do that for the other side as well. I'm just putting a little bit of glue near the hole, folding the other end over, and making sure that those two holes are overlapping. So I've got a little sewing clip. So I'm just pinching them together while my glue is drying. So now I'm going to take the other bow piece that's the same shape but smaller, and I'm going to do the same thing. And it's a little trickier because it's so much smaller, but just put a little bit of glue right on the edge of that hole. You don't want it covering the hole because you want to still be able to get the needle through there. Fold the other end over and do the same on the other side. And again, you want to make sure that those holes are free. So next I'm going to take the larger of my tail pieces. So it's the one that has all those extra holes in it. And I'm going to take the ear pieces, which I've embellished with the UV activated color changing iron-on. I'm threading my embroidery floss through my needle. So from the back, my needle is going to go through the third hole from the end on this piece. So you've got the two little holes at the end, and then you've got that one hole. So I'm leaving a nice tail on the end. And then I'm going to put my needle through the first hole on the bunny ears on that same side. And then my needle is going to go through the hole that's right beside it on the left and just pull it through both layers. So from the underside, I'm going to move across. I'm going to skip 2 holes and move across to the hole that's on the other side. I'm putting it through both layers again. So I don't want to pull it too tight. I've got it through both layers, so it's through my base layer and through my bunny ears, down again, and then down again on that other ear. So now I'm looking at the underside, and there are 2 center holes that are tucked away underneath my thread. So I'm just going to put my needle through the hole that's closest to where my thread is coming through. So right there. I'm just going to pull that through. Then I'm going to take my centerpiece. I'm going to flip it over so I'm looking at the underside of it, and I'm going to put my needle through the hole that's at the bottom and on the left. And then I'm going to take the smaller of the tail pieces, and I'm bringing my thread through the hole on the left hand side of it. So now I'm going to take that bow piece that I had folded together. I'm going to pull my thread through that one as well, making sure that that seam is facing downwards on my bow. I'm pulling through the holes on that one as well. And then I'm going to do it all in reverse. I'm just putting my needle through all those holes that are stacked up one on top of another. So for all those layers, so you can see how my needle is going through all those layers. And I'm just pulling it through. I'll flip my bow over again, and I'm going to put my needle through all those layers a second time. So from the back, and you can see it going through all those layers. I'm pulling it through like that, and then I'm doing the same thing through my layers. So that center piece, I'm looking at the underside of it. I'm going to wrap it around under that center yarn and in through the hole, and then under that stitch that I've formed in between, and then I'm putting it through the hole a few times just to secure it. And then I'm going to take that tail that I had from the very beginning, I'm going to cross it over and then just make a nice firm knot. Snip the excess off. Next I'm going to take another 12-inch length of embroidery floss. I'm going to thread my needle. I'm going to take my barrette, I'm opening it, run my thread in between all those stitches at the center. I want the closure to be on my left hand side, so I'm putting my bunny ears like so. I'm running my thread through that middle plate for my barrette, so up through the center of those stitches again, and then down through the plate of the barrette again, and then through the stitches again, just to make sure that it's nice and secure. So I've done it a few times now. I have my loose tail here. I'm just going to knot those together. Make a nice solid knot, and then snip off the excess. My third strand of 12-inch embroidery floss. I'm just threading my needle. I'm going to poke my needle through the hole that's at the end of my barrette, poke it through the hole that's closest to the barrette, and then through the hole that's furthest away, like so. And I'm leaving my tail long, and I'm going to do that a few times and make sure that my barrette is positioned where it needs to be. I want my bow rather centered. And then I'm going to so with my tail end and my live end, I'm going to knot them together securely. So now I'm going to do that on the hole that's on the other end of the barrette as well. Just putting, and then just pulling these through, and I'm making a nice solid knot again. So now I have a little center piece, and I'm just putting some glue on the underside of it, placing it in the center. You can put a little bit of glue just between the layers, just to tack them down. And there's my bunny ear bow. Now I'm going to take it outside and watch the ears change color.